Walk into any bass forum, any gear group, any comment section on this channel, and ask one simple question. What should I buy for $500 or less? Then start counting. Within 10 answers, one word will appear more often than Fender, more often than Ibanez, more often than any brand that has been building basses since your grandfather's time. Sire, a company most players had never heard of 10 years ago, is now the default answer of the entire budget bass internet, and the used listings tell the same story. Sire basses sell in days, while famous badges sit for months. So today we are answering the question properly, with receipts. Why is everyone buying Sire? Is it actually that good, or are we all just repeating each other? And most importantly, where is the catch? Because there is always a catch. Here is the plan for the next 20 minutes. First, the origin story, because Sire's rise makes no sense until you know about the deal between an unknown Asian factory brand and one of the greatest bass players who ever lived, and what he demanded before putting his name on anything. Second, what you actually get for the money, model by model, from the $300 V3 to the 5-string monsters. Because Sire is not one bass, it is a system, and most buying mistakes happen because people pick the wrong letter. Third, the uncomfortable question nobody asked in the hype threads. How is this stuff so cheap? What is actually being traded away? And fourth, the catch. The real, documented weaknesses. Who should absolutely buy a Sire, and who should walk past the hype and buy something else entirely. Stay with me for part 4 especially, because that is where the honest answer lives. And one of the 3 catches I'm going to show you is something the fan forums almost never mention out loud. And pay attention to part 1, because the single design decision Marcus Miller forced into these basses is the actual reason your favorite YouTube demo sounds the way it does. And once you hear what it is, you will understand the entire brand in one sentence. A quick honest note before we start. Sire did not pay for this video, nobody sent us anything, and the links below are plain product links so you can compare prices yourself. No markup, no affiliate games. But I did build something for you. The complete buyer's guide, every gold mine and money trap from this channel as one honest map you can take shopping. That's in the description too. Now let's get into it. Part 1, the deal that built the brand. To understand Sire, you need to understand what the budget bass market looked like before 2015. If you had $300, you bought an entry-level instrument from a famous brand, and everyone understood the deal. Decent wood, cheap electronics, tuners that did the job, and a silent agreement that the good stuff, the real preamps, the real finishing work, the real attention, started 3 price tiers higher. The industry was comfortable. Nobody was in a hurry to change it. Then a South Korean company called Sire, backed by large-scale Asian manufacturing, did something unusual. Instead of hiring a marketing agency, they went to Marcus Miller. And if that name only vaguely rings a bell. Marcus Miller is not a YouTube influencer. He is one of the most recorded bass players in history. The slap sound behind decades of records. A man whose signature Fender jazz bass was already legendary. The pitch was simple. Help us build basses, and we will sell them at prices working people can afford. And Miller, by every account of the story, made demands that sounded insane for the price bracket. He wanted a real, powerful, active preamp, not a token tone knob. He wanted playability details that normally live on instruments costing 4 figures, rolled fretboard edges, proper fretwork, necks you could actually live on. And he wanted it at prices where a student, a weekend player, a parent buying a first serious instrument could reach it. The result was the Marcus Miller V7 and its little siblings, and the market reaction was slow, then sudden. Because here is what happened. Players bought them expecting the usual budget compromise, plugged them in, and found an 18-volt preamp with a genuine 3-band equalizer, a mid-control that could reshape the entire voice of the instrument, on a bass that cost less than a weekend trip. The reviews wrote themselves. The forums did the advertising for free. And that is the one-sentence explanation of the entire brand I promised you. Sire took the features the industry reserved for the expensive shelf and put them on the cheap shelf and let word of mouth do the rest. Part 2, the system and how to read it. Sire's naming looks like alphabet soup until someone explains it. So here is the 2-minute version that saves you from buying the wrong bass. The letter is the family. V means the classic jazz bass recipe, the slim neck, the 2 single coils, the sound that sits in every funk, soul, and pop record you love. P means the precision style recipe, the thicker, rounder, foundational thump. M means the modern soapbar sound, more hi-fi, more aggressive. Z is the newest family, their take on the StingRay-style humbucker growl. And U means short scale, the smaller, punchier, easier instrument we have praised on this channel before. The number is the trim level, and this is where Sire got genuinely clever. The V3 is the entry door, usually around $300, and we called it a goldmine on this channel long before this video. Real active preamp, slim fast neck, the Miller design language, at a price where its competitors offer you a volume knob and good wishes. The V5 drops the active circuit and leans into a pure passive vintage recipe, and there is a serious argument, which the comments section is welcome to fight about, that the V5 is the best pure value in the entire catalog. Fewer electronics to pay for, all of the build quality, and a classic sound that never goes out of style. The V7 is the famous one, the flagship of the affordable line. Better woods, the full second-generation Marcus preamp, the one the reviews rave about. And above that, the V8s and V10s climb toward genuinely premium territory while still undercutting the big names by embarrassing margins. 2 details deserve special attention because they are the details owners always mention. First, the rolled fretboard edges. On most budget basses, the edge of the fretboard is a square corner because rounding it costs factory time, and factory time costs money. Sire rounds it anyway, and the result is a neck that feels played in and expensive the moment you pick it up. It is a $2 detail that creates a $2,000 first impression, and it is the single most quoted reason people say a Sire feels like it costs more than it does. Second, the heritage preamp. The 3-band EQ with sweepable character does not just adjust the tone, it convincingly imitates the tonal range of instruments far above its class. And that is precisely the feature that makes every demo sound so impressive. The bass can chase almost any reference sound the demoer throws at it. Part 3. The uncomfortable question, how is it this cheap? Because let's be adults about this. A bass with premium features at 1/3 of the premium price is not magic. It is a set of decisions, and you deserve to know what they are. Decision 1. Manufacturing location. Sire builds in large modern factories in Indonesia and China, the same industrial ecosystem we covered in our factories video. World-class CNC work, experienced workforces, and labor costs that make the math work. That is not a scandal. It is the same ecosystem that builds mid-range instruments for nearly every famous brand you can name. Decision 2. Marketing spend or the lack of it. Sire spends almost nothing on traditional advertising. No stadium sponsorships, no full-page magazine campaigns. The Marcus Miller name and 10 years of forum evangelism are the marketing department. When you buy a legacy brand's budget instrument, part of your money funds the brand machine. When you buy a Sire, that line item mostly is not there. Decision 3. Direct value engineering. Money goes where hands touch and ears hear, necks, frets, preamps, and gets saved where they do not. Simpler finishes on lower models, hardware that is solid but not boutique, packaging, dealer margins. It is the same philosophy this channel preaches every single week, applied by a manufacturer. That is honestly why this channel and this brand keep crossing paths. They are running our playbook at industrial scale. And now part 4. The catch. Because if you only listen to the fan threads, Sire has no flaws. And whenever the internet agrees that something has no flaws, this channel gets suspicious. There are 3 real catches, and you should know all of them before you click buy. Catch 1. Quality control variance. When you build enormous volumes at aggressive prices, the tolerances are honest, but the outliers exist. The forums document it fairly. Most Sires arrive excellent. Some arrive with sharp fret ends in dry seasons, high frets, or setups that need real work before the bass shows its potential. The same variance exists at every budget brand, but Sire's hype makes people expect perfection, and statistics do not care about hype. The fix is the same one we teach in every episode. Budget $40 to $60 for a proper setup, or learn to do it yourself, and the outlier problem mostly disappears. Catch 2. Weight and consistency lottery. Sire bodies, especially the ash ones on certain V models, can vary noticeably in weight from instrument to instrument. Order online and you might get the 9-pound version or the 11-pound version of the same bass, and your shoulder will know the difference on a 3-hour rehearsal. If weight matters to you, buy from sellers who list actual weights or accept the lottery knowingly. And catch 3, the one the fan forums rarely say out loud: resale value. Sire's greatest strength, relentless value at retail, is exactly what caps the used price. Nobody pays strong money for a used Sire when a new one is affordable and always in stock. If you buy new and keep it for years, irrelevant. But if you are the type who cycles gear every 18 months, understand that a Sire is a bass you buy to play, not a bass you buy to park money in. On this channel, we would argue that was always the point of a musical instrument. But you deserve the whole truth, not the highlight reel. So who should actually buy one? Let's make it concrete, because the honest answer is not everyone. If you are a beginner with $300 who wants one bass that can grow with you for a decade, the V3 remains one of the 2 or 3 smartest purchases in the entire market, and we said that before this video and we'll keep saying it after. If you love classic passive simplicity and want maximum instrument per dollar, look hard at the V5. It might quietly be the best deal in the catalog. If you want the full famous experience, the one the demos are about, the V7 is the flagship of the affordable line for a reason. If you want the StingRay-style growl without the StingRay-style invoice, the Z3 is the newest goldmine, and the wider market is only beginning to notice it. And if smaller scale suits your hands or your style, the U5 short scale carries everything good about the brand into a friendlier format. And who should walk past the hype? 3 groups, honestly. Players who need guaranteed dead-on setup out of the box and will not touch a truss rod, because the QC lottery will eventually find you, and your local shop's setup bench is part of the real price. Players who flip gear constantly because the resale math genuinely is not in your favor. And players who already own a good instrument and are being seduced by demos into thinking a Sire will fix their tone. Because, and longtime viewers can say it with me, your tone lives in your hands, your strings, your setup, and your amp. A new bass is the 5th item on that list, no matter whose name is on the headstock. Before we wrap up, run Sire through the 3 questions from the buyer's guide, because the framework matters more than any single brand. Question 1. Can you hear the problem you are solving? If your current bass genuinely cannot make the sounds you need, a Sire with that preamp is a legitimate, hearable upgrade. If you just watched a demo and felt the itch, that is a feeling, not a fault. Question 2. Real fault or sold feeling? Sire's marketing is quiet, but hype is hype, whether it comes from a company or a comment section. And 10,000 forum posts can sell a feeling as effectively as any ad campaign. Question 3. Have you done the cheap things first? $100 of strings and setup on your current bass buys a shocking percentage of what a new instrument promises. If you have done all that and the answer is still yes, then yes, buy the Sire, enjoy it, and play it for 10 years. Now, before the verdict, let's do what the hype threads never do and put Sire next to its actual competition, price bracket by price bracket, because a recommendation without alternatives is just an advertisement. At $300, the V3 fights the Ibanez GSR 200 and the Yamaha TRB S304, and here is the honest split. The Ibanez gives you the thinnest, fastest neck in the class and the lightest body. The Yamaha gives you the most reliably consistent build of the 3, and the Sire gives you by far the most powerful electronics and the most expensive feel. If you play fast rock and want comfort, the Ibanez case is real. If you want a tank that never surprises you, Yamaha earns its reputation. If you want the widest range of sounds and a neck that feels like it came off a dearer instrument, that is the V3's fight to lose, and it usually wins it. One bracket up, around 4 to 500, the V7 walks straight into Fender territory, and this comparison genuinely upsets people. The Mexican-made Player Series Fender gives you the name, the resale value, and the dealer network on every corner. And the V7 gives you objectively more instrument, more electronics, more finishing detail, more range. Which one is right depends on what you are actually buying. An instrument or an instrument plus a badge plus an exit strategy. Both are legitimate purchases. Only one of them is honest about what the extra money buys. And in the StingRay conversation, the Z3 against Sterling's own Sub-Ray 4, which we recommended in our Goldmines episode, the Sterling is the licensed original recipe and still a great buy, but the Z3 brings the bigger electronics package and the fancier construction details to the same money, and this may be the first bracket where Sire is not the underdog, but the favorite. One more thing the demos never show you: the first 100 days of actually owning one. Here is the realistic timeline, assembled from hundreds of ownership reports. Day 1. The neck feels more expensive than the price. The preamp is overwhelming in the best way, and you will spend an evening just turning the mid-knob and grinning. Week 1. You discover the setup is either excellent or clearly needs the work we talked about. There is not much middle ground, and this is the moment the lottery reveals your ticket. Month 1. The honeymoon settles, and this is where Sires distinguish themselves from most budget basses, because familiarity usually makes cheap instruments feel cheaper, and the consensus among owners is that the Sire keeps feeling like more than you paid. Month 3. You either barely think about the bass anymore because it simply works, which is the highest compliment an instrument can earn, or you have joined the modding forums and turned it into a platform, which the V-Series takes to beautifully. Either way, the pattern in long-term reports is remarkably consistent. The complaints cluster in week 1 and the praise clusters in month 3, which is close to the exact opposite of how hyped budget gear usually ages. And that, more than any demo, is the statistic that convinced this channel to take the brand seriously. So here is the whole honest answer to the title. Why is everyone buying Sire? Because 10 years ago, a legend in a factory called the budget market's bluff put expensive features on cheap instruments, spent the marketing budget on fretwork instead of full-page ads, and let the internet do the rest. The hype is real, and the hype is mostly deserved, and the catches, QC variants, the weight lottery, soft resale are real too. And knowing them is the difference between a happy owner and a disappointed one. Buy the bass, not the thread consensus. Buy it for reasons your own ears and hands can verify. That is the whole philosophy of this channel, and Sire just happens to be the rare brand that mostly survives it. Tell me in the comments, do you own a Sire? Which letter and number? And be honest, was yours a lottery winner, or did it need work out of the box? And if you chose something else over a Sire at the same price, what was it and why? Drop it below, because the honest ownership reports in this comment section are worth more than every demo on this platform. Everything is linked in the description, including the buyer's guide with the complete map of gold mines and money traps. Subscribe for honest, no-hype truth about bass gear, and I would be genuinely glad to have you along for the ride.